Okay, everybody, good late morning. Hope you guys are doing well. It's time for the rooting guide post-mortem. I know we're kind of near the end of the season now, and most things are relatively obvious. Most things are pretty clear. I think that most people have a pretty good handle of what Seattle wants and what they don't want. But I still think this is a topic worth going over whenever possible because, I mean, this is the end, right? There's only a handful more things that are really going to affect Seattle's fate outside of Seattle themselves, and we got to talk about them. So let's go through the routing guide that we were going through last week, and then in a couple days we will do the routing guide for the maybe even tomorrow we'll do the routing guide for week 17. Okay, so we don't have to talk about Thursday because we know what we wanted on Thursday, and we got it. We got what we needed. So great news there. But our actual trek through the routing guide starts on a Saturday. All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. Okay, so Eagles Commanders, I was good with this for sure. Definitely wanted Philly to win. Not because I cared about Philly getting in or not. They were obviously going to get in, and they're obviously going to win the East. Even if they had lost this game, they would have won the East by virtue of Dallas losing, which they did. But I was looking at this more from as the week went on. As I thought about it, I was thinking about this more from the Commanders' perspective. So this is kind of the more intriguing angle for Seattle right now. It's not about the playoffs so much because at the end of the day, Seattle needs to just win out. Seattle needs to win all of their games, and they will get the 1 seed. And whatever any other team does can't really change that. So that part is kind of like, yeah, you can root for other teams to help you, but the only team that can really help you right now is yourself. Just win your last 2 games. However, there's something going on with the Atlanta Falcons first round pick. It's going to the Rams. So what we want to do is have as many teams as possible picking ahead of Atlanta in the draft. And with Washington's loss, they go to 4-11, which puts them 2 games behind Atlanta. And they also have a slightly weaker strength of schedule, although that can change. So with the loss, Washington's first round pick is now basically guaranteed to be in front of Atlanta's. And those are the kind of things we need to happen a few times just to insulate us. This is not a good draft. It's not the draft that the Rams were hoping it would be when they made that trade. But I still don't want them to get a blue chipper if I can help it. And while we're looking for things to root for, I think this is something that you can at least go through the motions of rooting for, because otherwise there's just not a lot of interest to these games at all. So moving on from that, so good result. I also think Packers Bears was a good result because I think the Bears winning the division is good. And as of right now, by the way, the Bears have an 88% chance of winning the division. Because the reason why I say that is, number one, I want to increase the chances of a low wildcard team winning their first round playoff game. And more importantly than that, if Seattle is the 5 seed, which is still possible, we could still be the 5 seed. If Seattle gets the 5 seed, I want the Bears to win the division. So if we have to travel to Chicago, I would prefer that to traveling to Green Bay. I don't like either that much. Obviously, the Bears going to Chicago introduces problems, but I think going to Green Bay poses bigger problems. So the fact that the Bears are pretty much locked up to win the division, 88.4%, I think is great. Because in the event that we have to go to the winner of the NFC North, which is a real possibility here, we have a less than 50% chance to win the division right now if you want to use math. You'd much rather go to Chicago than go to Green Bay, I think, because Green Bay, House of Horrors, Soldier Field, I'm not saying it's fun, but I think you're more likely to be able to get a win there. Okay, so Sunday, Bills, Browns, there wasn't really a lot there. I mean, the Browns are now guaranteed to pick ahead of Atlanta, I guess, but that was not a concern. That was not something I was thinking about anyway. Chargers, Cowboys. The Cowboys were already eliminated when this game was played, but I did actually want the Cowboys to lose because there is an outside chance, and it is an outside chance, but there is a chance that Dallas could actually leapfrog the Atlanta first-round pick if Dallas keeps losing, and Atlanta can win at least one more game. So I wanted to set that up, and it did get set up for at least one more week. We are asking a lot there, though. I'm just going to say that right now. So that was good. Also good, Chiefs, Titans. We wanted the Chiefs to lose because that's another team. If they lose out, and right now Kansas City is so incredibly crushed by injuries that there's a real chance they do lose out even though they still play the Raiders. So there's a possibility they could lose out. Atlanta could win one more game, and Kansas City is picking ahead of Atlanta. So that's a team that could bump up ahead of where the Falcons pick currently is, which is 11th, by the way. So you can see here, if we catch some breaks, Kansas City could jump them. Dallas, unlikely, but could. Baltimore, unlikely, but could. If these things break the right way, that pick could be pushed all the way down to about 14, even with Atlanta losing to LA this week, which is pretty likely. Let's just be real about that. So these are the things that we monitor at the end of the year here because a lot of these games would mean nothing to us otherwise. Bengals, Dolphins. Bengals win in a blowout. We need the Bengals to lose eventually because if you take a look at this, the Bengals only have one game on the Falcons in terms of the draft order, and they have a noticeably stronger strength of schedule. So if Cincinnati wins out and Atlanta doesn't take care of it, doesn't win out themselves, if they only win one more game, then Cincinnati would actually go below Atlanta in the draft order, which we want to avoid. But they didn't have to lose this week, and we did need Miami to lose because Miami's in the mix here as well. In fact, right now, Miami is picking ahead of Atlanta by a tiebreaker, strength of schedule, 0.012% or whatever. So we needed Miami to lose as well. We just need to hope that Cincinnati will lose later. And they have a pretty easy schedule, so it's no guarantee. Jets, Saints. Saints are on a little bit of a hot streak, which is interesting because they do play the Falcons in Week 18. And for whatever it's worth, they are now only a game behind Atlanta, and they do have a weaker strength of schedule, but it's slightly weaker. They could get involved here as well, so I'd prefer New Orleans go away. I'd prefer they lose another game so we can stop thinking about them. And I would definitely prefer if they lose to Atlanta in a couple weeks so we really don't have to think about them, but I mean, right now they are kind of lingering here as an annoyance. They could be a team that falls behind the Atlanta Falcons pick if they continue this hot streak. And I think it's fair to call it a little bit of a hot streak right now. Vikings, Giants. So this game kind of ended the dream. I guess you could call it the dream. The Vikings could have had their pick leapfrog Atlanta, but it's basically impossible now. It would require the Vikings to lose out, which they could do looking at their schedule, but Atlanta would have to win out, including beating the Rams. And something tells me the Rams are not going to show up and lose to Atlanta the week after they suffer that agonizing loss to Seattle. So I seriously doubt that's going to happen. So Minnesota's pick is now locked up ahead of where Atlanta's is, unless the strength of schedule thing gets completely rejiggered. Right now they have a significant lead, and I don't think that lead is going to go away. Okay, so Buccaneers, Panthers, mixed thoughts here. On the one hand, the Panthers winning this game means next week's game against Seattle doesn't really mean that much to them. I broke this down in a video the other day. I know some people contested my statement, but my statement is objectively true. Don't know how Carolina is going to respond to it, but the bottom line is them winning this game means that the Seattle game is not high stakes for them. It's actually pretty low stakes. If they had lost to Tampa, they would be putting everything they had into that Seattle game because they're just fighting to stay alive. And they know that it probably wouldn't be enough, but they would probably they would move heaven and earth to win that game. I don't think they're going to move heaven and earth to win the game against Seattle now, but it does open the door for Carolina to win the division. And if you look at the playoff odds on ESPN right now, it's at about 47% compared to 53 for Tampa. And everybody's going to have their own opinion there. I'd rather play Tampa if we had to play one of the two teams in the playoffs. Tampa has played very poorly lately, and Carolina's played better. They're peaking. I think they have a better home field advantage. I'd rather play Tampa. I think Tampa would be kind of a layup at this point because they're just not performing at all. Okay, Jaguars, Broncos. There wasn't really a lot here. There are two AFC teams that are very good. I'm sure there's some strength of schedule consideration here, but it's a way too convoluted to try to follow. So I'm not going to think about that too much. This one was easy, though. Atlanta, we needed them to win. This was like a pivotal game. If Atlanta had lost this game, it would have been kind of DEFCON 1 on that draft pick they're sending to LA. But now it's kind of chill. I'm not worried about it. So, well, I'm still worried about it, but it definitely insulated us against the worst case scenario. So, big win there. Very happy about that. Relieved. I wish Arizona would win a game or two at some point because they're almost in the top 5 of the draft now. And in fact, they may end up creeping into the top 5. Even if they win one more game, we'll see. But there are bigger things at stake here. And if there's one team out there that will get a top 5 pick and then not use it very well, it's probably the Cardinals. Steelers, Lions, strength of victory says we wanted the Steelers to win. Again, I don't think strength of victory really means that much anymore. I think that things are pretty binary, but if you want to be technical, yeah, we wanted the Steelers to win for that just to give us an extra layer there. And this win also basically eliminated Detroit, which conflicted thoughts on that. On the one hand, it made the NFC playoff picture very simple, I think. Basically, we know everything except the Panthers might get in over Tampa Bay, or the other way around, depending on how you look at it. But it's not like Detroit was going to knock Seattle out. Seattle had already clinched. And I've said it before, I think that Detroit team, if they make the playoffs, is going to get demolished because they have too many injuries. They are working their butts off just to hang in there. I think when the playoffs start, they're going to fall right over. So mixed thoughts there. Raiders, Texans, strength of victory, strength of schedule stuff says we wanted Houston to win. Again, I think it's unlikely that it matters, but there was no other consideration in this game anyway. Patriots, Ravens, we wanted the Patriots to win to keep hope alive that Baltimore could lose out and maybe have their pick fall ahead of Atlanta's pick. That is still on the table. We're going to need Baltimore to lose out. We're going to need Atlanta to win one more game. Again, I'm just assuming they're going to lose to the Rams, so that's fine. But Baltimore's also going to have their strength of schedule come down just a tiny bit, which is very doable. I'm not too worried about that. But we got what we needed there. And then, of course, last night, Niners, Colts, not so much. Not surprised. I am kind of surprised at how unbelievably bad Indianapolis's defense was, especially because they played so well against Seattle just a few days prior. Well, a week prior, excuse me. But yeah, that game, watching that game made me think that we made a big mistake against Indy and apparently should have just sent 40 slant routes to JSN in that game and he would have had like 3,000 yards. I think he would have broken the single season reception yard record in one game if we had just fed him on slant routes based on what I saw in that Niners game. So seems like an oversight, but whatever. Okay, so that'll do it. Let me know what you guys think. That is the Rooting Guide Postmortem. Go Hawks. See you guys soon.